and stronger than it has ever been before. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right, Donald Trump taking a victory lap of sorts. I do not think that, as far as I know, any major news organization has declared him to be the victor, but it certainly seems that he is on his way to that point. And there he is giving a generally, as far as he goes, unifying and generous speech. He invited to speak his campaign managers, as well as Dana White, as well as his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. Maybe I have missed something. Has anybody actually declared him? In any case,
Fox has.
Fox has. Okay. Well, in any case, he's well on his way to that point. So.
And if you notice, he did not dispute in any way the results of this election. So obviously, he is feeling more confident in it than in another scenario.
I think there was one, in that long speech with all the weave, there was one key line. America has given us an unprecedented mandate. Now, it may not be unprecedented, but there's no other way you can read these election results than he has received a mandate in his personal victory, in the Senate, the Republicans taking the Senate and picking up more seats than were expected. He said that they'd taken the House. They haven't taken the House yet. Nobody has declared that, but I don't see any other way to read this than that he has a mandate to fulfill his agenda.
100%, and I think one of the things that's so significant about that is that the Democrats treated his first term as a fluke because he lost the popular vote and won the electoral vote. And in that sense, it was to a degree, although that has certainly happened in history before. This is a sweeping victory. And John and I were going over the margin of error, even in the blue states, New Jersey and New York. He significantly shrank the partisan chasm in those states, and we have declared that the Republicans are going to take back the Senate. We do not know what's going to happen to the House, but he does have a sort of mandate without question.
Yes, and he talked in this speech about the promises that he's made, and he said he's going to keep them. And so some of the most clear promises that he has made are on the economy, very, very sharp tariffs that have been controversial in the business world and among economists. Assuming that he gets that through, assuming that that happens, we will see if that is true or whether it will help. On the immigration front, which was, since the minute he came down that escalator in 2015, a huge topic for him. This time around, he has said point blank, he is going to engage in mass deportation. We'll see how that works. We'll see just even the mechanism of that. And the other thing that I don't think we should lose sight of is that he has said very clearly, multiple times, that he will go after and prosecute his enemies. And how he will go about doing that, what that means for who would be his attorney general, we will have to wait and see. We also should remember that if he is the person that raises his hand and takes the oath of office January 20th, 2025, thanks to the Supreme Court, there will be far fewer guardrails, checks on him legally. That will be the law of the land, that he will be able to do a lot more. And not to mention, the federal indictments against him will almost surely disappear.
They're gone. Absolutely.
They'll disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah, he talked about putting the last 4 years behind us. Maybe those are some of the things that'll go away. And, you know, I also want to recognize something that Dana White said at the UFC, where he said this is karma. Just to hear that through the lens of his supporters, that they feel that between his convictions, impeachments, etc., that he has been persecuted, and that this was their response to that. That was like a huge applause line in that room.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. This is a man who has been impeached twice, a man who has survived 2 assassination attempts, one of them very serious, 4 indictments, almost 100 charges, and he looks like he's going to have walked through all of it.
And he's at 34 counts, a
Right.
convicted felon.
And well, then we'll see what happens on that conviction and
Yeah.
what punishment he faces. I don't understand how a man like that couldn't feel tremendously empowered to do whatever he wants, because he has got the mandate. The system, I don't believe it was a persecution by the system or a weaponization or legal, but he certainly does. And it seems to me he's going to feel they did their worst to me, and I survived it, and I thrived, and the country gave me a mandate.
I think probably there are a lot of Americans out there watching who are trying to make sense of tonight and trying to figure out why this happened. And I know that there are those who think that this is a manifestation of ugliness among their fellow Americans, that this is a vote for bigotry, and this is a vote for misogyny, or this is a vote for racism, etc. And I want to take a moment and just reflect on the fact that if you look at the reasons why the voters who decided this election voted the way they did, it is not because of those parts of the MAGA movement or Trump's comments in the past. It's not about vindicating Trump for the lawsuits or the criminal charges or the impeachments. The people who decided this election, the people in the battleground states who switched or who turned out, don't like the country as it is right now, mainly because of the 3 issues. And like the people like it or not, Donald Trump ran an issues-based campaign, whether or not his 2-hour stem-winder rally speeches covered all of it. It was mainly because of the economy and the beating the people are taking at the gas pump and in grocery stores, inflation, and immigration, and the fact that immigration, there is a crisis at the border. There has been for several years. The first couple of years
delivered, and it did not go the Democrat way. So clearly we are seeing a result that has been along expected lines, of course, in the non-swing states, so to speak, but in the others that were expected to be a very, very close finish, we are seeing a close finish, but also a clear finish. The clear advantage now is in the direction of the Republicans, and so we have the election called, and we've heard from Trump.
Yeah, at least one of 2 houses is now delivered also to the Republicans. That's important. The Senate, the Republicans get a majority in the Senate, and that changes a lot of things. Of course, lots of decisions will be made which will impact the way U.S. politics is structured, U.S. governance is structured, the Supreme Court, and of course nominations to key posts. Now, Sanjay, before we get into all of that, I just want you to explain to us, how is it that this victory came together in the manner that it has come together? Because most people did not assume that Trump would carry the popular vote. He hadn't done so against Clinton, he didn't do so against Biden, but here he seems to be carrying the popular vote, which suggests that there is a larger constituency out there, maybe even a growing one for the Democratic candidate here, and who is now, of course, the 47th President of the United States. Sanjay Suri.
There are certain blocs that were perhaps expected to vote en masse for Trump. That didn't quite happen. The one issue that we heard more than any other by way of a vote block was the women vote, the gender vote. It was considered that the women are going to be solidly behind Kamala Harris, and that is the men who are going to be for Trump. That clearly was always an oversimplification, but an oversimplification of what people thought was a discernible trend. Again, to an extent we have seen that, but extraordinarily, the number of votes among women voters, according to trends so far, according to the numbers we have so far, is still more for Harris, but critically less than the number of women who voted for Joe Biden and the Democrats under him. I believe the number that is being suggested is that 57% of women voted for the Democrats under Biden. 53% now have voted for the Democrats under Harris. And this is when gender really has been made the prime issue. The Roe v. Wade case has been much spoken about. Abortion rights have been much spoken about. So the women vote has not quite delivered for Harris to the extent anticipated, to the extent certainly claimed, and relative even to the last election in 2020. Now that certainly is contrary to the popular belief. Also, we do know that there are a number of males who have delivered their vote for the Republicans, and that includes a very sizable number also among the minorities. Again, it was not the case that the overwhelming minority vote will go the Democrat way, which it traditionally has done. So there were certain assumptions made, certain predictions made by the pundits, and these have turned out to be a little bit off the point, and certainly off the results that we've seen.
Well, I'm sure the Harris campaign is going to introspect. We're going to cut back across to CNN now to get an insight into how they're interpreting the Trump speech there.
Because they believe she is somebody who can keep him out of light. Now, after his conviction, as we talked about, she was up at Trump Tower. She never came down with him. Even when he spoke, she wasn't there. She was never seen publicly with him. And there was a lot of questions about that. You know, even he brought up on the campaign trail in the last 2 days how she was there on the campaign trail with him back in 2016 and 2020.
Yeah.
And she had largely disappeared. It was notable that she was there today. And I was speaking to somebody earlier before the Mar-a-Lago event who said they weren't even sure she was going to show up to that Mar-a-Lago watch party. Now, obviously, everything started shifting when they started seeing those numbers coming in. But she has really taken a back seat here, and it was interesting to see her on the stage.
Yeah. And Jake, obviously a moment there that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump himself summed up. J.D. Vance calling it, as he put it, the greatest political comeback ever. And Donald Trump saying that he believed that they are seeing the results that we're looking at now for a reason. Obviously, the question is what that means and what's to come.
Caitlin, thanks so much. And Anderson, it is hard to think of a political comeback that is actually more significant than this one. I'm tempted to say Richard Nixon, but that really falls short of what Donald Trump has achieved.
Yeah, I mean, winning not just the electoral votes, but the popular vote as well. Let's continue the discussion about just what this means, and obviously Democrats are going to be looking at this very closely about what it was why they didn't deliver.
Yeah, well, and we talked a bit about that. We should, we heard a discussion about what it was. We should talk about what it wasn't. It may have been a mandate for some of the policies around economy and immigration. There'll be battles over some aspects of that and the wisdom of some of it. But certainly he should feel like he's been affirmed on that. It wasn't a mandate to wantonly use the power of the presidency to punish his political enemies. It wasn't a mandate to help enrich himself and his friends. It wasn't a mandate to single out groups in our society for scorn or worse. I'd love to hear from Van on this, but let's be honest about this, okay? Let's be absolutely blunt about it. There were appeals to racism in this campaign, and there is racial bias in this country, and there is sexism in this country, and anybody who thinks that did not in any way impact on the outcome of this race is wrong. I'm not saying that was the main reason that Kamala Harris lost and Donald Trump won. And I think they ran honestly, strategically, his campaign, and I've said it many times, they ran a very smart campaign. It was an ultimately rational, well-conceived, and well-executed campaign for an often irrational candidate, and they overcame him to sell his message, or the message that they thought he should be selling to the country. But let's not confuse what this was and what it wasn't. Let's be very clear-eyed about it.
I think it's going to be a long time for us to figure out what it was and what it wasn't. I hope that it goes the way that you said. But I do think it's bitter in the mouth, the racial and gender dimension of this. And the only way that you can kind of begin to see it, if you don't see it right away, is, can you imagine a woman of color acting like Donald Trump acted, even for one day? The kinds of stuff that he said, the kinds of things that he did, the way that he would insult people. If you're a person of color, you don't feel you have that freedom. You feel like you really are somewhat constrained. You're always running something in the back of your mind like, how am I going to be perceived? And also, if I say this, will they think that all black people are this way or all women are this way? So there's a license that he had to just be a fool, just to be an obnoxious ass to everyone. And for people to go, well, he can still be president. There's nobody who doesn't have that phenotype that feels that free. And so I do think that what I'm hearing from people is, what do we have to do to be acceptable? I'm hearing from women of color, from people see things very, very differently. I just want to make sure people, Kamala Harris, look, she's not Oprah or Beyonce. She's not like some untouchable black woman in the popular, but she is a respectable woman, and she's somebody who served in all three branches. She served in the courts, she served in the legislature, she served in the executive branch, she served local, state, federal. She should have been qualified enough to be able to not have this sort of an outcome. And so, just give me a second now. And so then I think what happened last time when Trump won, everybody ran to the economic argument. The Tea Party was just people, they had economic anxiety, that's all it was. But the people with the most economic anxiety were black and brown people who at that time did not join the Tea Party. So I just don't want to take out that many things can be true at the same time.
I would just say this.
maybe you got a bad messenger and a bad message. Kamala Harris has never run an election in a state that wasn't 100% Democratic. She's been elected in the state of California her entire career. She's run as a prosecutor. She ran for AG. She ran for Senate in a blue state. So she's never had to build a coalition. She's never had to really campaign. When she ran for president the first time on her own, she tanked. She tanked. She didn't get anywhere. And then so when this came about, this opportunity came about, she didn't run again. She's never been battle tested. And actually, you've said this before. Running for president is a skill. Like Barack Obama wasn't good at it when he started.
Right.
There was no racism at it. Barack Obama got good at it. You helped him get good at it, right? And so maybe she's just a bad messenger, selling a bad product.
No, I mean, look, I think, again,
You don't think there's any validity to that?
No, I think that there are plenty of ways to critique her as a candidate. I think there'll be time to do that. I think the fundamental point, and it's been made again and again and again tonight, no one, I don't care how good a candidate you were, it's very hard when there's a 28% right track number in this country, when people have 2/3 of the country think the economy is bad, regardless of whether it is, or, you know.
No, again, I'm saying not just messenger, I'm saying the message as well.
But no, yes, but that is all true, but that doesn't obviate the fact that there were some people who probably voted against her. We've never had a woman president, that there's sexism in this country. There are people who probably voted against her because there may be some people there are clearly people who voted for her because of
Barack and Michelle Obama are the most admired, some of the most admired people in America.
Let me just say, though, I wonder, I worry that...
Trust me, there were plenty of people who weren't terribly happy about having him as
still
president.
today, if you look at the numbers.
Please stop.
No, but I think that the wrong takeaway from this would be that by running toward the center and away from some of her 2019 positions, that was a mistake, and that she should have doubled down on ultra-leftism and tried to play to the progressive base. I think this is a sweeping indictment of a progressive left that has gone so far that it alienates so much of the center of this country. There's a rural-urban divide, but there's a cultural divide where people feel left behind where part of the party, Democratic Party, is going. And I do think she was right to moderate. That's what she should have done. But she had a 3-month, basically, window to do that. She's somebody who was not battle tested, and she was wearing the brunt of Joe Biden in her own positions in 2019. That was a terrible position to be in.
Donald Trump on the brink of a stunning victory. Votes still coming in. We're also tracking the fight for the control of the House. A lot more ahead.
Well, viewers, some analysis coming through from that CNN feed. We'll, of course, connect right back to it. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. Stay with us for this rolling coverage.
And again, I don't want to be disrespectful to the President of the United States, but have you seen anything? The Vice President of the United States looks like she's about to lose the presidential election. She was campaigning vigorously from the second she got the nomination up until the votes counting today. Is there any evidence on the table that the President of the United States could do half of what she did?
No.
A third of what she did. I mean,
No.
we could go. I don't want to
I
be mean.
agree.
I don't want to be mean to the President of the United States.
No, and we saw over the last week him calling for Trump supporters garbage, et cetera. Like
I could tell you from my first trip 15 months ago, people were saying, "Where's the president?" I think one of the legacy conversations about this election is not just going to be the switch from Biden, but the 2 years before that.
Yeah.
You would travel and people would say, "Where's the president?" He was invisible because he couldn't do events, and he wasn't talking about his record and his agenda and trying to explain that cost of living stuff, trying to explain that, yeah, it sucks in a lot of places, but look around the world, the United States is actually doing better than most advanced economies. He was missing.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot said and done and told about that. Let's check in with Caitlin Collins, who's at Trump's headquarters, ahead of remarks that were expected by the former president. Caitlin?
Yeah, Jake, just to give you a reality check of where the Trump campaign has been watching this election day play out, they woke up confident this morning that Donald Trump would win this race. But when I was talking to them about what they thought the next few days were going to look like, one, they thought that this would go on for several days. They did not think that the numbers would be as generous as they are, as what the numbers have been coming in, as they have been reported. And they also had counseled Donald Trump that there would likely not be any kind of decision within the next 24 hours or so. Donald Trump himself was frustrated about that and was saying that he wanted to know what the outcome of this race was going to be tonight, and he said, Kristen, that he had not prepared a speech. And obviously we are seeing now the Trump campaign in real time, as we've been talking to them, are adjusting to what they've been watching play out over the last 3 or 4 hours or so.
Yeah, and he's feeling really good. I talked to a number of people who were with him who said that he is ecstatic, that they had already said that they thought he was in a different headspace than when he went into 2020 when he was angry. He was watching those results come in. But as you said, he still couldn't understand why they weren't going to get the results tonight. Now, obviously, we're seeing a lot more of these states being called right now than even his own team anticipated. I was told that they were looking very carefully at Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, and they thought that maybe they'd have some idea by tomorrow what those results would look like. But as we're seeing those results coming in, there's so much more of that vote counted in these states than they even...
The White House. Let's take a look at where the electoral vote count stands right now. Donald Trump has 266 electoral votes. Kamala Harris has 195 electoral votes. The magic number, obviously 270 needed to win. Donald Trump is 4 short of that. So let's look at the states, the battleground states that we have not called yet. Michigan, Donald Trump 52.6%, Kamala Harris 45.6%. Donald Trump a 320,916 vote lead. That's with 81% of the estimated vote in from the Wolverine state. In Wisconsin, Donald Trump 51.1%, Kamala Harris 47.3%. Donald Trump with a 120,903 vote lead in a state with 94% of the estimated vote reported in. In Arizona, Donald Trump 50.4%, Kamala Harris 48.7%. Donald Trump with a 31,223 vote lead. That's with an estimated 54% of Arizona's vote reported in. Nevada, Donald Trump 51.5%, Kamala Harris 46.8%. Donald Trump with a 51,805 vote lead with 76% of the estimated vote in. So John King, what are we waiting for?
To see how bad the shellacking is. This is a shellacking for the Democrats tonight. The question is how bad. A shellacking for the vice president. Right now, we still haven't called, we haven't called Michigan or Wisconsin or the western states, Arizona and Nevada, but the former president is leading in those. The Republicans will take control of the Senate. The question is how high do they go? And we're still waiting on control of the House, which now becomes vital. Donald Trump with the presidency and a clear majority in the Senate. Won't get to 60 votes, but 55 maybe. It's possible, maybe even higher than that. So the House comes everything. But now when you're looking at this, here's one way to score it. We're not done yet, but Donald Trump is winning the popular vote by 5.2 million votes. Another way, he's winning with more than 51% of the vote nationally as you look at this. To get to 270, to officially get there, Donald Trump, let's just sneak over here just a little bit. Either we call Wisconsin or Michigan soon, but we don't even have to get there. When Alaska comes in later, that would get him to the edge, and he wins 1 congressional district in Maine. So Donald Trump is knocking on the door. He's going to get there. He's going to get there. I was going to say barring this, that, or the other thing. He's going to get there. I'm probably not supposed to say that on television. We haven't projected it yet, but he's going to get there. So here's another way to score this. Excuse me for turning my back. This is where we are right now. That number could change. We have 50 states. The Republicans are winning 31-19. In a football game, if you lose like that, the coach gets together and says, what should we do differently, right? Ronald Reagan Mr. Wallace and I were both child prodigies, so we were around, we remember this. Ronald Reagan won 49 states. In the next election, George H.W. Bush won 40 states over Michael Dukakis. And some Democratic governors, Bill Clinton in Arkansas, Jim Hunt in North Carolina, Roy Romer was out in Colorado. Some Democratic governors, Lawton Childs, believe it or not, a Democratic governor of Florida. Governors like that got together and said, we have a problem, Democrats. What are we going to do about it? This is going to be a fascinating conversation in the days ahead. Because you see these three states right here, the blue wall states, right now, they're not done. It's possible the vice president picks up one of them. But right now, the math is pretty damning for her right there. Democratic governor, Democratic governor, Democratic governor. What do the Democratic governors say? Arizona right now is going Republican. We'll see what happens. Democratic governor. Where are the people going to stand up, Jake? That's my biggest question, and say, Houston, we have a problem. How do we fix it? Back in the Bill Clinton days, that was the Democratic Leadership Council. They said the party was too liberal. A lot of those conversations, you just had one at that table over there, are happening tonight. A lot of Democratic incoming tonight to me is Democrats need a new way to talk about urban America. They need a new way to talk about crime, and they need a new way to talk to counter Donald Trump's what the Democrats call fake populism. The voters today don't seem to see it that way, but the Democrats say it's fake populism, so how do we answer? Why are working class voters, why is that happening out there, right? So that's what the messaging problem is Democrats are texting about. And when you say, well, what are they talking about? Well, this is what they're talking about. Again, Mr. Wallace and I were standing on a platform here in 1988 where Michael Dukakis rode the tank in Warren, Michigan. That's Macomb County. Donald Trump is getting 58% of the vote right now in Macomb County. Those used to be Democrats. Those are blue-collar workers who work with their hand a few miles north of Detroit. A lot of them are unionized, union members. 58% of the vote. He got 53% there 4 years ago. So in an election where Democrats are trying to pull back blue-collar working-class voters, Donald Trump took more. We're not at the final count yet, but there you see it there. And so then you come here to Oakland County. This is your more affluent suburbs. Again, when I started doing this, this was Republican territory. Just want to take a look at it. Donald Trump at 42% there in 2020. Donald Trump at 43%, just a tad better, right? Trump did well, made gains with blue-collar workers, and some of those are black workers and Latino workers, by the way. They're not all just white blue-collar workers. His suburban, this is going to take a while to analyze all this. He seems to have inched up a little bit in the suburbs. That's enough to win. That would still be a place where Republicans look like, how do we improve after this? But when you have a map like this, let's come over to Wisconsin, right? I said earlier in the night, can the vice president do in Brown County, right, can she narrow the margins? This is Green Bay, again, blue-collar workers. Green Bay Packers fans, 55% to 43%. Joe Biden had 45%, a little more. Again, it's a point or two, but the Democrats are heading in the wrong direction with the voters they need. Now, a lot of Democrats scoff when you come out to the national map and they see all this in the middle, and they say, well, nobody lives there, or they're the flyer of the states, or they have tiny roles in the Electoral College. I'm telling you, when the score is 31-19, it's time to have a conversation about who we're talking to and who we're losing and who won't listen to us. That's the issue there. So I just want to come down and look at a few other places as we come through this. We were talking about this earlier, Jake. Again, Joe Biden got 61% in New York State. It's a blue state, right? It's a blue state. 61% in 2020. The vice president's down to 56% if you round it. So even in the reliably blue states, the margins are down a little bit. You can write it off if you want to one election. You can write it off to the really bad cost of living climate that you live in, but you can also say that our candidates and our message did not counter his message. Again, she's winning 96%, 52%. So we'll call that a 5-point race, 52, 5.5, 6-point race. 4 years ago, it was a 10-point race. So even in places that are blue on this map, the margins are more narrow, which tells the Democrats you're losing 31 out of the 50 if it finishes out that way. Your margins have shrunk even in the states where you have won for years. The 3 states that made Joe Biden president there in 2020, once again, made Donald Trump president. We're not done with the counts there, but you see that down there as well. The Democrats thought their progress was going to come down in the Sun Belt. That's a lot of red, and at the moment, that's a lot of red, Jake.
All right, John, still ahead. Will Republicans hold on to the House, or will Democrats take it back? We're going to get the latest on that, plus more on Donald Trump on the verge of victory and what comes next.
I first design it, sketch it, import it into my computer, and make a simple prototype. From the time I start designing to the time I have the perfect product, it takes more than a year. Everyone in factories in Sabai wants to make beautiful, high-quality products that can be used around the world, and that you can tell at a glance are Sabai glasses from Japan.
Growth is the essence of life. So at First Bank, we continually develop innovative tools to help nurture our customers' finances. With all financial solutions, we have been inspiring growth by helping businesses flourish for over 130 years, investing in people, their projects, and their communities for the economic benefits of all. You first. First Bank.
Election coverage continues, and we've got you covered like only CNN can. Follow every
Slotkin is running for Senate. Keep your eyes on this one. Meantime, a key race alert from Alaska. Nick Begich, the Republican in this race, leading the Democratic incumbent Mary Peltola. She's a freshman who's actually the first Native Alaskan ever voted to Congress. This is a ranked choice, sort of open format in Alaska, so you'll see her going up against a fellow Democrat. But right now, Begich, 5,800 votes ahead, 55% of the vote in this at-large district. Obviously, Alaska, a state that Donald Trump won. So what does all this mean for the balance of power in the House of Representatives? The raw numbers right now, 169 for Democrats with 1 pickup, 197 for Republicans with 4 pickups, 69 seats remaining up for grabs. Anderson, as you know, 218 needed for control of the chamber.
All right. Boris Sanchez, thanks very much. We'll check in with you a little bit later on as well. Ashley Allison is joining us, as well as Scott Jennings. I want to hear from both of you. Ashley, obviously this is not the outcome you had hoped for. What do you think, what are you looking at about what went wrong?
Well, I think she wasn't able to put the coalition together she needed to in each of the states. It was never going to look the same. But we've always talked about this would be on the margins. So if you pull off even 1% of one of your base constituencies, which he was able to do in many of them, you were not going to be able to keep that state or hold that state. And so I've heard a lot of people talk about the conversations we need to have. And I think we do need to have conversations as a party. But the conversation that I want to have are for people who showed up and voted for Kamala Harris, and tell them to hold their head up high. I remember in 2016 having to walk back into the White House today, and I was embarrassed to go to work because I feel like I had failed our country. Despair is not the time to lose hope. It is the time to dig down, to do some soul searching and fight for a better day. Many of the communities that are most vulnerable and that are really afraid right now, the trans community, immigrants, people of color, even if there's polling or outcomes that are showing that some people of color voted for Donald Trump, you're worthy, you're visible, you're not alone. And so you can feel what you feel right now, but we have to do work to protect the most vulnerable.
Well, viewers, there you have it. The 47th President of the United States will be Donald Trump. He scripts an unprecedented comeback, only the second president to have returned to office after having lost after a first term. That in itself is unprecedented. Also, on a personal note, he is seeking vindication from the fact that for the first time in 2 electoral races, this is the third one, viewers, he is leading the popular vote, which suggests that many